Hello and welcome back to another episode of Neonz React. Today we'll be reacting to Konosuba is deeper than you think. So yeah, before we start this video, I just want to say that I'm trying out a new format in this kind of setup, and if you guys don't want it, comment down below.
Konosuba is great. That pretty much everyone and their grandma can agree upon. The comedy is hilarious,
it's
the
very
character
amazing.
dance is amazing, and the voice actors spectacular.
Spectacular.
There are certain aspects of it that go overlooked. The sheer brilliance of its writing that I believe deserves more attention. He is the perfect response to these generic blank-faced blahs that have plagued
Yeah, but they are the most infamous isekai
to
one.
the point where nothing is interesting
Nah, he's absolutely
he's
hella
physically
weak.
weak and has
Yeah.
powers, meaning he needs to rely on wit and strategy. Is he dense and thick as a tree stump?
Oh hell no.
He's cultured and has common sense and self-awareness. Is he a simp? No. Most of the time. He's Mr. Gender
he's
Equality.
kind of a
man
simp,
who's
but
willing to drop kick even a woman if she deserves it. He's a guy who went to an isekai world and thought he was gonna have the time of his life, but instead was
absolutely
hit with
no.
reality. Watching him constantly get mad because nothing in this world is ever what he hoped it was gonna be is hilarious. He is a breath of fresh air. It is so nice to have an isekai main character with a real personality, and it only gets better with the rest of the gang. Aqua has 2 brain cells. Darkness is a masochistic human punching bag, and Megumin, crazy as she is, steals the show every time. More on that very, very soon. But the chemistry between all these characters is just the best thing ever.
It's not your generic isekai where like
total idiots,
where like the character is just straight up bland and there's nothing going for them.
Each other the same regardless.
Yeah, there's no like difference at all.
Each other. And if one of them were to go missing, it just wouldn't feel complete. This feels real because this is how close friends in real life interact. And the fact that the writer was able to portray this so well here is just so refreshing.
Absolutely
Voice actors
amazing,
do a fantastic job and get jokes that were funny and somehow make them even funnier. Seriously, even just hearing Kazuma's voice makes me laugh. He could be talking about girls growing and it'd still be funny.
What the hell? What?
And then of course there's Megumin. This is the very definition of best girl. When you search up the words best girl, she will be the result. Megumin is probably the most popular character in all of Konosuba, and for good reason. Because not only is she arguably the least incompetent out of everyone in the group, although that isn't saying much, but she's also, in my opinion, one of the funnest to watch, which in the world of Konosuba is a difficult thing to do.
Comedy, yeah, absolutely. A comedy is absolutely gold tier.
Person who'd fawn over a cute animal, but mercilessly kill it if it gives her a ton of experience points. She starts off with her entire obsession with explosions and her chuny personality, which is but could have easily gotten old if that was all there was to her. Just like a certain someone. But instead of letting that define her entire personality, it only shows up during key moments. And during those moments, the explosion itself isn't necessarily the joke. Instead, it relies on the context of the scene and her personality, which results in a different joke every time, which doesn't get repetitive. And when she doesn't get overtaken by her chuny personality, she's surprisingly mature. Actually, now that I think about it, her personality can be quite similar to Kazuma's in some aspects, since they are both cunning and mischievous and are willing to use that to get whatever they want without any regard for human decency. They both have a lot of intelligence and yet tend to make a lot of stupid decisions, which is basically the exact opposite of Aqua. He lacks intelligence most of the time, and yet has moments where she does show real intelligence. But regardless, because their personalities have a lot of similarities, their relationship is genuinely one of the sweetest to watch. I especially love the scene where Kazuma first starts taking Megumin on their explosion walks, where they just go together so Megumin could explode something, and Kazuma carries her home after she expends all her mana. He doesn't have to do it. In fact, he'd very much prefer to not have to do it. And yet, he always ends up doing it for her anyways, which says a lot about his character, but more on that later. I really love this scene because Kazuma usually acts like a jerk whenever he's forced to do something that he doesn't originally want to do. But here, he actually gets into it. He gets familiar with Megumin's explosions and shows a real interest in it, and is quickly dubbed an explosion connoisseur by Megumin. A title he actually holds with pride, even to this day. I just love it whenever Kazuma shows genuine enthusiasm towards something. It's so rare, but that's what makes it special. These two share a bond over something so ridiculous and simple, and yet it works so well. And this bond only goes stronger as time goes on, especially in the light novel.
Yeah, the light novel.
I'll read the first act, so what can I say? And when they're interacting with each other, that's when I feel that their personalities truly shine. None of these characters would really work on their own, but since their personalities are so different and yet so similar at the same time, when they do stuff together, it just creates a life of its own. It's nice.
Very wholesome.
The first 5 minutes. I feel it goes overlooked just how well the writing establishes everything within the first episode, especially in the first 5 minutes. The writer had to make sure that yes, it makes sense, but he also needed to clearly demonstrate what the story is all about, its tone, as well as its characters.
Also known as a hook in like a YouTube video, I just hooked you guys.
At the same time, which is a lot harder than it seems. So how does Konosuba do this? The first real thing that happens in the show is of course Kazuma's death. It gets the classic situation of Truck-kun is about to hit
Truck-kun.
and our hero jumps in the way to save them, sacrificing themselves in the process. Naturally, this would lead to the hero being sent to heaven where he meets a beautiful goddess who sends him to an isekai world thanks to his pure nature.
Yeah, very typical so far. Yeah, very typical so far.
Overpowered abilities. But instead, this happens.
Something else. they like subvert your expectation. Yeah, they actually like subvert your expectation.
It turned out that the truck wasn't a truck, but instead was a harmless tractor. All Kazuma did was randomly shove somebody, collapse on the floor, think he could get hit by a truck, and proceeding to die of shock. Now first, this obviously establishes Konosuba as a parody. It's a show that takes common
subverting expectations from an anime.
But the writer also had to be careful about the way he did this. There are many other ways that you could have parodied the scene that might still have been funny, but ruined several other aspects of the show. For example, there really could have been a truck that was about to hit an innocent person, and Kazuma, instead of jumping in the way to save her, could have just walked right past, and then the truck would randomly swerve around the girl and hit Kazuma instead. This situation would have still established Konosuba as a parody, and this still would have been probably funny, depending on your sense of humor, but if it had done this, it would completely change the tone. It would go from something a lot more lighthearted and silly to something a lot darker and more cynical, which isn't really what Konosuba is at all. But by far the biggest change this would have would be on Kazuma himself. We all know Kazuma. He's a self-centered butt with bad behavior who does whatever he pleases. But he isn't heartless. If this scene with Kazuma walking past someone who was about to get hurt was really the scene that happened, it would have solidified
they said like a tone, like a tone,
and I would probably hate him. There's a reason the entire saving someone who's about to get hit by a truck scene is a trope in the first place.
Basically set a tone that the character is a good person.
All day, it's kind of hard to get behind them, even if you relate to them. But when they see someone in danger and willingly sacrifice their own life to save them, that creates character. This is the first real scene we see.
But like at this point, it just become like overly generic and to the point where it's like overused, like trope in movies or TV show where like, it just got overused.
We know that based on just this one scene, that no matter how much he acts like a douchebag and no matter how much he pretends,
we know in our heart that he's a good guy.
And by having Kazuma intend to do the right thing and instead be punished for it, it also puts us on Kazuma's side. This scene managed to get the best of both worlds by both parodying the original trope while still maintaining the reason it was there in the first place. And we got all this from one single joke. The scene after this also does a great job of establishing Aqua's character as well. At first, it portrays her as if she's a pure and divine goddess, but then
on
us and has her mock Kazuma's stupid death for fun. Then she bends the truth and convinces him to go to the other world. Then when Kazuma's deciding which item to pick, she starts eating potato chips and asks him to hurry up. Then after Kazuma gets mad at her and drags her to this new world out of spite, she practically has a mental breakdown in the middle of the streets. But as soon as Kazuma figures out what to do next, she recovers pretty much instantly. Each of these moments give us a different side to Aqua's personality that makes her a multi-dimensional character that doesn't just rely on a singular trope. Yeah, we all remember Aqua being useless and dumb, but the show doesn't rely solely on those things, and showcases multiple other aspects of her personality as well. She may be dim-witted, but she also has her moments where she acts cunning as well. She's also lazy and selfish, but also sensitive and temperamental. Because Konosuba never relies on a single character trait, it means that Aqua never feels one-dimensional or flat.
Not like Sakura,
as a basis for her character to take on its own life. And that goes for everyone in the main gang. And as much as I complain how overdone her jokes are, that includes darkness. Konosuba is constantly giving us characterization through the different situations its characters are put into, and
also don't forget like the world building in Konosuba was also amazing.
But if it wasn't there, we would feel it, because everyone would feel flat, one-dimensional,
bland.
But instead, it gives us quirky and unique characters with strong personalities. Characters who may have memorable traits, but aren't completely defined by them, leaving room for other dimensions of their personality as well.
Part 3. How are these guys likable?
It is a miracle that these guys are the way they are, and yet they manage to be not just likable, but lovable. Usually, if a character is selfish, arrogant, stupid, and useless,
you kind of hate
them, or at the very least, dislike them. And yet, we love them.
We kind of go and join more and
more. We don't love them despite their flaws, we love them because of their flaws. And while I can agree with that sentiment, I also feel like there's a bit more to it than that. Because if giving a character flaws was all you needed to make a character likable, then people would absolutely
No, like
love
make the
Gabby,
character flawed
or
because they're
Sakura,
more
or
believable
Sho
and stuff
Tucker,
like that.
when that is definitely not the
Yeah.
case. So for this, I'm going to talk about Kazuma and Aqua again, as they're both the perfect example of how to make terrible people likable. I could talk about Megumin, but it's pretty obvious why she's so likable. She easily has the most positive traits out of everyone in the team, is a ton of fun to watch, and is also the most active character out of everyone. And all the stuff I'll be talking about also applies to her too. Kazuma and Aqua, on the other hand, shouldn't be likable. Kazuma is a lazy douchebag who uses gender equality as an excuse for sexual harassment, and Aqua is a useless drunk who breaks down in tears at
Absolutely
anything.
useless,
They
yeah.
are anomalies because they're the worst kind of people, and yet they somehow manage to be likable anyways. Kazuma, for example, may be a giant douchebag, but he's not just that. He's an understandable douchebag. When Kazuma first came to this world, for example, he was excited, ready to start anew and go on exciting adventures, only to be slapped in the face with disappointment over and over and over.
And over
we totally
again,
get why
yeah.
he would dislike being in this world, and his constant fed-up attitude makes sense to us. In the scene where we meet Matsurugi, he, let's see, damages their cage, insults Kazuma, acting as if he doesn't deserve his companions, even though he's the one who's doing all the work, and then actively tries to get them to leave Kazuma and join him. And then when they all try to walk away, he tries to challenge Kazuma to win Aqua, even though
Yeah,
the
that is
difference in
just like
level is
stupid.
so obviously huge. So when
Yeah.
Kazuma gets the jump on him and steals his sword fair and square, it's a victory. The guy
Yeah.
got what was coming to him. When Kazuma stays inside and refuses to come out, it's like, of course he would. The outside world is dangerous. He's died multiple times, and he's got as much money as he needs right now. Plus, it's cold. I'd probably want to stay inside too. Oh, you're gonna laugh at me, actively mock me for my stupid death, and be an overall bitch to me for no reason? Well then, I'll just find a loophole and drag you down to this world with me.
It's
You
basically
deserve it. And plus,
believable,
he never actually
yeah.
intended for her to stay there because he thought she could go back. And after like 2 seconds, Aqua doesn't even care anymore and just finds being in this world fun. She constantly forgets about trying to defeat the
Yeah.
Demon King and get back home, and even forgets that she was a goddess at one point. But going back to Kazuma, he doesn't always act like a total scumbag. In fact, a lot of the time, he just behaves like a normal person. When people are nice to him, he's nice to them
Nice
back.
to them
And he
back.
even
When
has
people are
moments where
a
he
dick
goes
to
out of
him,
his
then
way
he
to be
beat the
genuinely
back.
nice to people, but more on that very soon. Almost every time Kazuma does something that could be considered trashy, we always feel like he's 100% justified in doing so. And Konosuba does that by making it so that every single time he behaves this way, it's almost always in direct
In a
response
context,
to something bad happening
yeah,
to
in a
him. Aqua also does
context.
something similar, although slightly different. Her inherent stupidity should be annoying, especially if she's constantly mucking everything up. But instead, it almost comes off as kind of endearing. And that's because the stupid thing she does have some form of logic behind it. In the Lizard Runner scene, Kazuma has a problem. He can't tell which one is the king. But Aqua has an idea. If the Lizard King is the fastest one, then all she needs to do is attract their attention with magic. And whichever one gets there first is the king. Except the problem with this idea is that if the lizards come their way, they're gonna get trampled on. Don't worry, Kazuma, I'll get you out of prison. Just use this stool to reach the bars and saw your way out. How are you supposed to get the stool in here in the first place? You can't really get mad at her, she's just trying to help, it's adorable.
Yeah.
Rather than just having Aqua do dumb stuff because she's dumb, you can see why she would make that mistake. There is logic behind it, all that's happened is that she's overlooked some very important details. She's not necessarily stupid, she just doesn't always think things through. The second main thing that the show does is something I like to call the give and take principle. Remember Abu from Aladdin?
No.
I promise this is relevant, just hang on. Yeah, when Aladdin went down to the Cave of Wonders, Abu kinda grabbed something that he wasn't supposed to and caused all this to happen.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're like,
I
oh,
did not
come on,
watch
Abu,
Aladdin,
really?
so
Why'd you have to do that? You ruined everything. And then this happens.
Whoever he was, he's long gone with that lamp.
You know what, he's okay. The principle is that whatever a character takes, they also need to give back. And whatever bad things they do need to be balanced out somehow.
Positive
and this applies to
contribution.
everyone in
Oh.
Konosuba, especially the 3 girls. Even in regards to their powers, they have high tier jobs and are extremely powerful in what they specialize with.
They're
but
absolutely
also have
OP in their
massive
own
drawbacks
field,
to balance this
yeah.
out. Megumin has the most powerful attack, but she can only use it once for the day and can't move by herself afterwards. Plus, of course, there's her personality. Darkness has an impenetrable defense and is pretty much invincible, but she also can't land any of her attacks. Plus, of course, there's her personality. Aqua is a powerful healer who can heal everything and can literally bring you back from the dead,
Yeah.
but she has no combat skills and attracts the undead. Plus, of course, there's her personality. The main reason I bring this up is because of how this fury applies to a deeper character point of view. When it comes to Kazuma, he's actually a good person at heart. While he does have his moments where he acts scummy, he also does many genuinely good things throughout the series. And by having him do these things, it solidifies our respect for him. When Kazuma realizes that they just got paid for fixing a problem that Aqua caused in the first place, he feels bad about it and returns the money because it just wouldn't be right to keep it. When he gives Megumin's parents snacks and they start arguing over it, he realizes just how poor they are and gives them all the food he has, because he knows they need it more than he does. And in one of my favorite scenes in the entire show, Megumin is at her lowest point. She has a lot of character development in the movie, and here she makes a choice. She doesn't want to be selfish anymore, and she painfully makes the decision to give up on her life dream to learn normal magic. If she did, it'd be easier to protect the people she cares about. She doesn't want to be a burden. She doesn't want to watch
haven't watched this part,
she
so
doesn't want to be powerless to help, even if that means giving up her love for explosion magic. Not being able to bring herself to do it, she hands her adventurer's card to Kazuma and asks him to press the button for her to learn advanced magic. And Kazuma knew just how much this passion meant to her. Ever since he met her, she was crazy about explosions and refused to give it up, even if it meant not being able to find a party until she met them. And now the fact that she's willing to give that up shows just how much she's grown. Kazuma makes his decision and hands the card back to her, and he asks her to give one final explosion. So she does it. And it's the best explosion.
Epic.
And we realized that instead of making her learn advanced magic like she asked, he buffed her explosion spell instead. Megumin was willing to give up on her dreams to change, but Kazuma knew what made her happy and already liked her the way she was. He didn't want an excellent mage. He just wanted Megumin, and that's why they're the best couple ever. Seriously though, this entire section exists because I just wanted to talk about the movie, but forgot to put it in the outline. But getting back on topic,
that was about to repeat. I haven't seen this part.
He tends to have his moments where he acts lazy or like a self-entitled jerk. At the end of the day, he's a guy who cares. He has a lot more depth than we tend to give him credit for, and he makes up for this bad behavior by both the consequences that happen to him as a result, and most importantly, the good that he does. Likewise, when it comes to Aqua, she actually contributes to the plot. Like to joke about how useless Aqua is, but in reality, her presence in the show is anything but useless. If you remove her from the equation, you have just removed a huge chunk of Konosuba, and pretty much everything that happened wouldn't have happened. If Aqua didn't mock Kazuma in the beginning, he wouldn't have dragged her down with him. And if Aqua didn't come with him, they wouldn't have partied up with Megumin in darkness, and the entire story would be different.
We'll just stop and change it to
Aqua's mere
something.
presence in the show makes a difference, for better or worse. In the fight with Beldia, she summoned a flood which destroyed the wall, putting the team in debt. However, if it weren't for her, Beldia would have never been defeated in the first place. In the fight against the Mobile Fortress Destroyer, it's only because of her magic that they broke down the barrier in the first place, thus giving them a fighting chance. And they also used their mana to recharge Megumin. And going back to the Lizard Runner scene, Aqua may have caused the problem in the first place, but then it's balanced out almost instantly. First, Aqua's the one who suffers most from this mistake since she's in the front line of getting trampled. But then after this, when Kazuma falls and dies of his own accord, it's because of her that he comes back to life. She has also brought Kazuma back from the dead multiple times. And while some of them may have been her fault, there's no denying that Kazuma really would be dead without her. She also purifies the lake, gives Keel a peaceful death, purifies their house from all the ghosts, and saves the Axis cult from Hans, even going as far to scald her own hands in order to do so. She also has several moments where she does stuff that's actually amazing, but just in the strangest situations that isn't really useful for adventuring specifically, like how she can create masterful paintings, is an excellent construction worker, and is an amazing performer that can perform magic tricks that blow even Kazuma's mind. Basically everything except for actual combat. But we don't really think about these things because every time Aqua does do something useful, the show ignores it, or finds a way to frame it as if she did something useless even though it wasn't. Plus, the show loves making her suffer the consequences of her actions and having Kazuma bully her. You can't really get mad at her if the show doesn't let her get away with everything. And when she isn't crying, she has a ton of charisma and is just really fun to be around. Granted, they still have their moments where I just want to punch them in the face and scream, why would you do that? Especially in the light novels, but I always end up liking them again in the end. And I suppose that also kind of serves to make things feel more real, since we all have those kinds of moments with close friends.
Normal people have like flaws and they're not just like perfect like Kirito or
The point
something.
is that while Aqua doesn't really contribute that much in regards to the fighting, she still exists in the story for a reason and does stuff that makes a difference. Whatever Aqua contributes, she finds a way to take it away. And whenever she screws something up, she always makes up for it in the end. And the thing is, the show actually calls this out. Kazuma directly states that all of Aqua's good deeds are cancelled out by her negative ones. But that's a good thing. All that really means is that her negative contributions have been balanced out by her positive ones. And the show frames that as if it's a bad thing. But that's what a good character should do. It's kind of genius because it makes us understand why Kazuma would be annoyed at her without actually making us annoyed at her. So that's why Aqua's useful. join the Access Cult.
Part 4. Improving the source material.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. As an adaptation, the Konosuba anime isn't perfect. There is a lot of cut content that I really think would have been great to have animated, especially in the movie. Wiz's introduction, for instance, was cut out completely, making it confusing when we first meet her because who the heck is this? And why is everyone talking as if we already met her? And all it really gives us is a 2-second flashback and a really short explanation. In the movie, there were also a lot of sweet scenes between Kazuma and Megumin, the introduction of the Tranquility Girl, and we get to explore the Crimson Demon Village more, plus a ton of great jokes as well. There were also some very important lines of dialogue cut from the bath scene with Kazuma and Megumin, which totally changed his perspective on her from viewing her as a kid to an incompetent junior, which is one of the main catalysts behind his eventual romantic interest in her. But the one thing I really wish was animated was the Dust swap chapter. This chapter not only introduced Dust and his party properly, but it also gave us perspective as to just how important Kazuma is. It starts with a drunk Dust approaching Kazuma and mocking him for choosing a low-level quest despite having high-level party members, unaware that Kazuma just died recently and is still healing.
Yeah.
He implies that because Kazuma has the weakest job, that he must be holding his team back, and Kazuma gets frustrated but ignores him. That is, until Dust starts loudly talking about how Kazuma's planning to create a harem and how he must live a blissful life free of suffering. And at this, Kazuma snaps.
Pretty ladies. Harem. You said harem. Hey, are those things in your eye sockets made from glass? Where are the pretty ladies? My eyes are bad and can't see anything. It's alright.
Why did he gotta make a deep voice into it?
Glass eyes, but my lousy ones.
After this, Kazuma states that he'd gladly switch for the day, to which a confused Dust goes along with. So Kazuma goes off with Dust's party to hunt goblins, while Dust goes with the girls on their own quest. And Kazuma does a fantastic job. Originally, he was supposed to just carry luggage, but when things go wrong, he saves everyone time and time again. Despite being low-leveled and weak, he uses his wit and creativity to get them out of trouble. And on their way home, Dust's party apologizes for looking down on him, seriously wishing that Kazuma could join the group. And when they get back to the guild, Dust and the girls are a wreck. Aqua and Dust are crying, carrying an unconscious Darkness and Megumin disaster. And Dust, now realizing just how much Kazuma has been through, tearfully apologizes and begs to be let back into his group. This team needs Kazuma. Throughout Konosuba, there is always a time when one of the party members from the main gang isn't there, and each time they barely manage to finish their quest. But without Kazuma, they didn't even manage to start the quest and they already fell apart. The story also gives us a great feel for Dust's personality, basically being Kazuma, but worse. I really wish they put this story in somehow, but probably thanks to budgetary constraints they couldn't, which kinda sucks. I would have taken this over the Succubus episode any day. The second thing I wanted to mention was the art style, which is pretty hit or miss for me. On the one hand, I love how quirky and expressive it is, and it fits really well for its style of comedy. But
The
on
comedy,
the other hand, there's of course the saggy boobs, which I'm honestly not a huge fan of, but also some of the character designs, which makes some of them look way older than they actually are. For instance, Megumin's friends. Here, they are clearly in high school, and they look to be about the same age as Megumin, because they are. You can tell by their designs that they are teenagers. And this is how they look in the anime.
Wait, what?
I'm sorry, what? They look like they're in their 20s.
Yeah.
It looks like she's in her 30s. Are you telling me that these are supposed to be teenagers? Are you telling me that they're meant to be the same age as Megumin and Union? How the heck did we go from this to this? Also, the light novel style is a lot prettier in my opinion. Yeah, the anime art style has its charms too, but part of me also kind of wants to see what the art style from the light novels would look like on the small screen, since there really is some beautiful artwork here. But with all that said, out of the things that they do adapt, I think they do a fantastic job. Its comedic timing is spot on. Its voice actors, as stated before, do a phenomenal job. But one thing that I want to bring up is that throughout all of the adaptation, they're just adding in so many little things constantly. Little details that I just love for no reason. Sometimes in a movie or show, I just notice tons of little great things that it does. They aren't that obvious and don't really contribute anything to the story. Things that make you say, hey, they didn't need to put that there, but they did. And it just makes you appreciate it so much more for that. And Konosuba is full of this. Like how every time someone calls Kazuma's name, he always responds with, yes, I'm Kazuma. Or this moment when Aqua goes on a purification rage against all the ghosts in the house, only to interrupt it with nature's beauty. Or how in the in-between slides, they always see Konosuba in a different way. Or how in the intro, the gang just bobs their head along to the music.
Very fun.
It's just satisfying. Or even just how perfectly Aqua hits this high note in the outro for season 2. Like seriously, is nobody gonna talk about how much of great singers these guys are? Actually, I just love the ending songs as a whole. There's just something so peaceful and nostalgic about it. Contrasting with the madness that happens during each episode, this ends things in such a nice way. They made a drunk Kazuma version of this song. The Bakuritsu song, the wiggly thing they do in the intro, the countless amazing facial expressions.
Yeah, there's a lot of like facial expression and it's a lot of meme material, that's for sure.
You'll get tons of examples. Now, I'm aware that these things don't really do that much, but at the same time, they just do so much. If that makes any sense, and the fact that these things are done so often and consistently throughout all of Konosuba means that it all adds together, and the sheer amount of passion and effort put into it just oozes out of it. I felt this way about Knives Out, I felt this way about Parasite, and I felt this way about Konosuba.
Parasite, I
can't believe I just compared Parasite to Konosuba. Regardless, you could tell that everyone, from the writer to the director to the animators,
similar, but like the aspect of the character is kind of similar.
They all just had a ton of fun working on it. And whenever everyone on all levels of production do that, you can tell. And the fact that the jokes that are adapted are improved upon and are even funnier than they are in the source material makes me really appreciate it. Not every adaptation gets that, especially when it comes to comedy. I still may have some criticisms, but at the end of the day, I still think they did a great job of adapting the light novel. And there's nowhere else he'd rather be. Because with every ridiculous adventure he goes on, and every new character he meets, the trials and inconveniences, the romance and victories, everything that Kazuma has been through means something to him. And those things, annoying as they were in the beginning, were always worth it. So basically, he's a massive tsundere. Now, Kazuma still has flaws. He's still a lazy scumbag who yearns for true gender equality. Kazuma is still Kazuma, but he's a lazy scumbag who understands that the world and the people in it were never going to be perfect, or anything close to it. But
just like in the real life, in our all human is flawed. They never just like perfect.
And that's
like superhero.
Now, I want to say that despite everything I've talked about in this video, Konosuba is far from perfect. It is very excessive with its fan service, even for me. It gets kind of messy towards the middle of the light novels, at least from a structural perspective. And while the ending was great in my opinion, it was also very abrupt and felt like it wasn't quite finished yet. I mean, seriously, it just ended with so many loose threads that needed to be tied up. Please, Mr. Writer, please give us a sequel to resolve everything. Also, let Kazuma and Megumin get married. There are also quite a few jokes and moments that I feel try to be funny, but instead end up coming across as mean-spirited and not that funny. And while the animation is very expressive, I also understand why people would say that it feels low budget at times, because it is. I'm not trying to claim that it's a masterpiece of literature or anything like that, but despite all these things, I really enjoy it all the same. And that's kind of ironic considering that's one of the main messages of Konosuba. It really is a great show that has a lot more substance behind it than we tend to give it credit for. And because of that, I truly believe that its writing deserves more attention than it gets.
Wow, like I have like watched some part of Konosuba, but I haven't finished the first season. So it's kind of little spoiler for me, but like light novel, I read the first arc and it was pretty amazing. But I haven't like read like to the Kazuma arc yet, so but yeah, that's the end of it all. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's been your boy Neonz. Goodbye.